One being ATP. You quickly mentioned this not being our energy currency. Let's talk about that.
So a guy named Gilbert Ling did his PhD thesis on sodium potassium pump, which is one of the crowning jewels of modern science, right? The question was always, how do mammalian cells live in a sodium-rich environment, but they concentrate potassium inside and push the sodium outside, right? So that's when you lose that gradient creates essentially the voltage, the charge of living tissues. So this is as fundamental to modern science as it gets, that the reason this happens is because the sodium potassium pump in the membrane pumps the sodium out and the potassium in. And his whole PhD thesis proved that there's no such thing as a sodium potassium pump. It's all basically just nonsense. And he proved that by stripping the membrane off the cells, and the sodium potassium distribution was the same. And he also proved that ATP has nothing to do with energy. I don't even know if it's actually there. We're not a biochemistry set, but the medicine. It all comes back, as I like to say, it's a contest between atom and atom. So one atom is ADAM, that were made by God, which is a creative consciousness energetic field. And the other atom is ATOM, and were made by bouncing billiard balls which randomly collide with each other, and then you get a frog, and the bouncing balls keep bouncing, and then you get a gorilla, and then they keep bouncing, and then you get Aunt Hilda. And that's nonsense. We're not made of molecules or atoms. That's basically just a story. It's just theory. And if you even know how they came up with the atomic theory, it's a load of hooey. Which, by the way, also means there can't be atomic bombs because there's nothing to split. So that's just sort of fear stuff. That's a whole nother subject too. But anyways, so ATP is a chemical which may or may not be in us, and he proved it has nothing to do with energy. There's no more energy in a triphosphate bond than any other simple molecule. It's got nothing to do with it. He wondered whether it's somehow like when you make Jell-O, you take gelatin proteins, you mix it with water, right? Nothing happens. So you heat it, and that unfolds the proteins, and then they attach to the water, and then they make Jell-O. He wondered whether ATP attaches to the proteins that are the skeleton in our tissues, and that allows them to interact with water, and that allows it to gel and create a charge. So it looks like it's got to do with energy, but it doesn't have anything to do with energy, except in creating the environment for the cells to become charged, or the tissues.
Okay, so still a little bit of mystery there of how that work is being done at the end.
The whole thing is a mystery. How you go from an energetic field and consciousness into like stuff. Like that's a pretty big nut to crack. And then the other guys tell us, by the way, the stuff is made of atoms, and atoms are this little nucleus, and then all the way over in New York City, that's where the electrons are, right? And then in between, there's nothing. And so your finger is made of atoms made of nothing, and the table is made of atoms made of nothing, right? That's what they say. So how come I can't stick my finger through the table? I don't buy it. It's just a story that makes you think this is so complicated I can't possibly understand it, and it must be all random, and nobody's in charge here, and I don't have any agency. I don't have anything to do with this. It's just bouncing billiard balls, and then you get Lou Gehrig's disease. That's it. Don't worry about it.
Well, like you said at the beginning, you don't necessarily have the answers, but there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean that you can't prove that the current theory is incorrect, which is the first step in my mind. And then what we're talking about here, how it actually works, once we've disproven something, that can be the next step for science or people to go and figure out.
I know I didn't kill that guy. I don't know who did it. But I know it wasn't me. I know there's no atoms. I know ATP hasn't got anything to do with energy. I know there's no sodium potassium pump. I know the heart isn't a pump. I know blocked arteries don't cause heart attacks. I know viruses don't exist or never been shown to exist. I know bacteria don't cause illness. Parasites mostly don't exist, and the ones that do have never been shown to cause illness. I know all those things for sure. It doesn't mean that I know what causes somebody to be sick. I don't know who killed that guy. I know it wasn't me. That's called thinking.
And you're saying exactly what I'm saying.
I don't know how many doctors I've asked. I don't know how many doctors I've said, there's no evidence that there's a chickenpox virus, right? Instead of saying, here is the evidence for a chickenpox virus, here's the definition of the illness, here's how we found the virus. They say, so what causes chickenpox? Who killed them? And until you tell me who killed them, you're guilty. That is scientific illiteracy, which is the problem today. That's the problem with the doctors and the scientists in particular. They're scientifically illiterate. They don't know how to stick with, here is the evidence, because if they told you the evidence of how they know there's a virus that caused chickenpox, you would say, are you kidding me? You got to be kidding, because but they don't know it, because they don't care, or whatever reason. I don't know why they don't know it. I didn't know it either. So I was just as guilty as anybody else. But I did have a sense. I knew enough to know, look into what isn't true first.
If you enjoyed that clip, you're going to want to head over here and catch a full episode. I'll see you over there.
Nobody has liver attacks, kidney attacks. They have heart attacks and brain attacks called strokes. No other organ has attacks, even though the blood is the same and the arteries are the same, which led me to think it's got to do